Hey, good morning. How is everyone this morning? I am thrilled to be here with you today, as always. Thank you, Reverend Melanie, for inviting me. This month, our theme is the 12 steps of your spiritual path or your spiritual journey. And so we could not let the month go by without talking about the 12 steps of AA. And so if you're unfamiliar with AA, you may be asking or thinking, so what does AA have to do with spirituality? It has a ton to do with spirituality. It is basically a spiritual program for people to find new tools in their lives and new ways of looking at things, new perspectives, new levels of responsibility, and combine that with belief in something greater than themselves so that they can overcome, in this case, typically the obstacle would be alcoholism or addiction. So why am I talking about AA? I was introduced to the family rooms of AA, which would be Al-Anon, Co-Anon, Ar-Anon, that sort of thing, because I was in a position where I had somebody in my inner circle that was an addict. And it was recommended to me that I go to the family rooms. And that was wonderful for me because I had rebelled when I was about 16 years old, maybe 17. I went running away from the church like my hair was on fire. I had become very disenchanted with the things that I was seeing and, just really not very happy with organized religion from my experience of it. Let's say it that way to that date. I just could not buy into the way things were being done and what I was being told. So I fled. I always had some kind of belief that there was something greater than me, looking out for me even at some points that I had had experience. Some of you know that I do psychic healing work and stuff like that. And I had had experiences since I was younger, maybe my teenage years, where there were things that just could not be explained. And so I definitely knew that there was stuff out there that was not just us here in the physical body. And one thing I can be grateful for is that there was a sense of something greater instilled in me from childhood, even though that is not necessarily the path that I have ended up taking in exactly the same form. So I got into the family rooms of AA, which do work the same 12 steps through a life circumstance. And that was the first time that I had touched spirituality in many years. And it was a real loss for me to not have that touch point for so many years because I was so disheartened with what I was being shown previously. So it was interesting that it was through adversity and struggle and trying to help somebody else that I ended up back in the rooms. So let's just start right there. You're in the room. One of the first things that you learn when you go to a family room is that you work the same 12 steps that the addicts or alcoholics in your life are working, hopefully. Maybe they're not even in the program, but you can still use these steps to change your own perspective and basically get healthy. That's what it's about. It's about getting your focus, getting centered, getting real, and getting healthy and getting your priorities where they need to be. So one of the first things the first step is came to an understanding, this is me paraphrasing, but came to an understanding that our lives had become unmanageable. And so really the only reason why you would be in an AA room or an Al-Anon room is because there is an element of addiction or alcoholism that is unmanageable in your life. So that's not a hard one to believe. Number two is that became willing to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And so right there, right off the bat, you're looking at, okay, there has to be something bigger, because if I can't do it myself, then there must be something greater that can help me. What other choices do you have? You can give up and fall in a hole, or you can decide that there is a way, there is something else, and there has to be something greater than you, since your willpower was not able to solve it, or your manipulation was not able to solve it, that there is something greater. And then the third decision, or the third step, is made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to God as we understood him. And so this was not a leap for me, because although I maybe didn't believe in God or the rules, at that point I might have believed in God more or less the same way my mother did, but I didn't necessarily believe in the rules and the way people were handling things. So this wasn't a huge leap for me. And AA can actually be it's a spiritual program, and I think it was stemmed out of some people in the Christian church, but it can be secular for a lot of people, because a lot of people just use the rooms. When they say that, they talk about the rooms. That means the meetings, the people, the support system, the program is their power greater than themselves. And it doesn't really matter what you choose. Like any spirituality, as an inner spiritual center, you understand that many different people have many different paths. Even in our own group of regular members of One World, there are many different paths of backgrounds that people have been through. And in the end, it seems like we've all come to this place of interspirituality, since One World is an interspiritual church, obviously, where we accept and acknowledge the benefits of many different paths and the validity of all paths to the divine. So all of that ties in. So now let's look at what the title of my talk was, which is, It's Not All About You. How many times have you heard somebody say, it's not all about you? Even my guides have said, it's not all about you. But usually that's in a different context. And I'm going to add, but maybe it is. Maybe it is. It's not all about you when you're trying to manifest something into your life and it's not coming on your schedule. There are other factors. There are other people at play. And even dealing with alcoholism and addiction, there are other factors and other people at play. If I'm in a family room, I got there because of other people in play in my life. So it's not all about me, but the sickness or the disease, or maybe not disease in this case, but the unhealthiness in my mind or my life is all about me. They say God helps those who help themselves. I just did an article on this in my podcast. I was doing a Mother's Day article on the art of creation and manifesting. And there is a step that sometimes is overlooked, especially in metaphysical and new thought stuff. It's, if we just think it right and see it right, envision it right, it'll all be fine and it'll all work out. It's going to take a fraction of the effort. Well, yes, and there's also the real world component. And that's not to be overlooked. That's one of the things I love about One World, is that we are real, down-to-earth people who understand the nature of physical reality as an important and intrinsic part of the whole experience here. So the spiritual experience, again, just like in my path, which is nature-based wisdom, witchy stuff, there is the non-physical, the unseen, and the physical, the seen, what's happening in your life or in your bank account or in your home, all of the touchable physical things. So really what happens in the AA program is that it brings you back to understanding that if you're there, it's because you're focused on somebody else and things outside of you. What does Brian Perry say? He says, you gotta be in your hula hoop. If you're in a family room for AA, you are probably got there because you were way outside that hula hoop. You were trying to fix somebody else, help somebody else, do this, do that. The 12 steps is often used for Codependence Anonymous too. And there's a reason for that. So in any case, when you get past the first 3 steps, which are the my life had become unmanageable, I believe that there must be something greater, and I become willing to turn my will and my life over to that something greater. The next ones are a lot of hard work. And this is why I say, well, it's not all about me, but maybe it is. Because if I don't do that hard work, my life isn't going to change. I can't sit here and own myself into the perfect life if I'm going to actually participate in the real world. So what are those next steps? 4 to 10 basically is, 4 is took a fearless and moral inventory of ourselves. So you write down all of your resentments and, places where people have harmed you or you perceive that they've harmed you. And it's a really in-depth program. If anybody is interested in personal development, I mean, it's a lot of work, but it makes things very clear. You can see where you've kind of been falling down on the job and not taking personal responsibility. If you're the person that's always, it's somebody else's fault that I'm having this hardship. It's somebody else's fault that this happened, or well, that happened, but I had nothing to do with it. Sometimes that is how things unfold. But if it's a trend, and with addicts and alcoholics, it does tend to be a trend from what I've witnessed, and I was in there a long time, many, many, many years. There tends to be people coming in thinking that the world is happening to them and it has nothing to do with them. And what this program does is it turns that around. Because when you make your searching and fearless moral inventory, you got to get real. And you got to look at all this baggage that you've been hanging on to, and then you measure it against these markers of, well, why do I have baggage? Why do I have feelings about this? Well, maybe it was a threat against my ego. It was a threat against my security, my financial security. There's a whole list of things. And if you have a really good sponsor in this program, for those of you who don't know, you are encouraged to get a sponsor, not just show up at meetings and talk the talk, but actually do the work and walk the walk. They say it works if you work it. But it doesn't work if you just talk about it and you don't do it. So you're encouraged to get a sponsor who's been in the program a long time, has good results, is really walking their talk and can walk you through this stuff. And then once you've done that inventory, and I know guys, I seriously have a friend, he used 4 notebooks, 4 big fat binder notebooks to get through his 4th step. I mean, he was serious, and he's an amazing human being as a result of all this work. And I'm sure he was before too, but once he got through all this stuff, he gets to shine that real self underneath of all his potential and what he's capable of. So once you've done that work, the next step, which would be 5, is, you admitted to yourself and another human being the exact nature of your wrongs. Anybody who's ever been in coaching knows that when somebody says it out of their own mouth, you can't tell somebody something if they don't want to hear it. They just don't hear it. It's not a problem until they think it's a problem. But when it comes out of their own mouth because they've done the work, they followed the steps or whatever it is, and they have to admit, okay, this I could do better. When it comes out of your own mouth and not being forced on you, it's a pinnacle moment for change in someone's life, no matter what it is. For me, getting a divorce was like that. It was like I had to just get to the point where, I don't think a bunch of people were telling me, but I had to get to the point where I was willing to admit there was no other choice for my well-being. And it needed to come from me, not from anybody else. And I'm sure you've seen this before. Then 6 is you become willing to turn your will and your life, that you become willing to have God remove all of your shortcomings. And 6 is you ask God to help you remove all of your shortcomings. So that again is involving, you've done some work for yourself in your own world and reality. And now you're asking the divine, whatever God means to you. I'm sure it means something different to me than it does to probably most of you watching. And then you pull in that help from the non-physical, which I absolutely do believe in. I am helped all the time, every day. I get guidance when I am open to it, and I learn to pay attention to it and how to see it and recognize it. Let's see, step 7. I might have these out of order now, so bear with me. But one of the next major steps is you make a list of everyone else that you've harmed. And then you actually, and that can take a while too, but then you have to go back through and you have to look at, well, is it a real harm or is it a perceived harm, which is what you did in reverse in the Fearless Moral Inventory, right? Was it a real harm or a perceived harm? and what was my part in it. Then you may become willing to make amends, and you do make amends, except where to do so would injure yourself or others. So again, it's just doing the work. And I say it is all about me. Sure, there is the divine, and sure, it does help me all the time. But in my process, in my life, in my spirituality, I am the only one that can change or choose my path, my connection, my direction, my personal responsibility, my actions, my thoughts. It is all about me as the little mini epicenter, not because I am the end all be all of anybody around me, or because, it's like the sun doesn't revolve around me, everybody else's lives don't revolve around me. But for my own well-being and my own spirituality and my own path, it's all within my power. And that's the only thing I have that is within my power. So I'm answering the question before I'm done, but I think it is all about us at one level. And then you also bring in the divine. So my favorite phrase, I can't say that, my favorite phrase that I learned many years ago is "and both." We often tend to think in one or the other. It's this or that. It's either all about me or it's not all about me. But what if it's both? And I believe that is. It's not all about me in many ways. And it is all about me when it comes to my part in my spiritual development and my spiritual awakening. Then the last steps of the 12-step program are basically that you do prayer and meditation. Even they recommend prayer and meditation. Or, you can substitute that for any kind of contemplative work that you have that helps you to connect to the concept of something greater than yourself. It might be the world or environmental stuff, or it might be just the well-being of humanity. Whatever that is for each person, it doesn't matter. It's personal. Your spiritual journey is obviously personal. I know you all know that. But then you make conscious efforts and quiet time to connect with that thing that is your higher power and that supports you and nourishes your soul. In essence, it's really that simple. And then it's wash, rinse, repeat. You make amends, you pay attention to your part all the time, ongoing, so you're constantly recycling these steps. You pay attention to when you're catching a resentment and you analyze it, you make it right. If you harm somebody else, you recognize it, you take responsibility, and you make it right as soon as possible. And you continue to do all of these steps, and then you go back and you help others and share your experience and what you've learned and what you know. So that is the basis of the 12 steps. And I think it's just a fantastic program. It does have great results when people actually do all the work, and it makes sense because what we're doing is we're healing ourselves. We're healing our perspectives. We're healing our perceived wounds and really taking a look at it. It's very similar to many other things. Look, in what is it, Buddhism, we have right mind, right action, and all of those the eightfold path that is all about personal responsibility and perception and really getting clear. Same thing as the 12 steps. It's like in Catholicism, I think of it as it's repentance with feet. Instead of saying Hail Marys or whatever you're doing, you're going out and you're doing work to make it right. In alchemical spirituality, or I love alchemical hypnosis. It's a modality for healing where you get to really look at what's going on. And one of the aspects of it, because it's what's in you happening and your perceptions and all of this subconscious work. But one of the things that you look at is what we call overt acts. And that means, did you actually do something overtly, like just you did it and you harmed somebody else, and then you make atonement for that in some way or another. And this concept in the 12 steps of amends and writing down your harms and then making amends when possible is all the same stuff. So what I see is that this is just an extension of our spiritual toolbox. It's some great concrete tools that really work. And it is just another way of looking at all the things that we already talk about at One World, because we are an interspiritual group. So the last step is, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we strive to practice these principles in all of our affairs and carry it to others. So it says right there, spiritual awakening, that is the path of the 12 steps. And from what I've seen and what I know in my experience, it works if you work it. So I'd like to close really quickly with, I'd like to read the promises for you. I love these. I think they're beautiful. They're inspirational and uplifting, and they are good for any person, whatever the situation. So I hope you enjoy, and thought this might be a great way to close out our service. The 12 promises of AA. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them. Thank you again. Have a wonderful week. Blessed be.